Hey there everybody, welcome to another episode of Bert's Bike, and today we are going to do the 1 year review on my Kawasaki Z900RS. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's just take a moment to admire the amazing styling of this motorcycle. It is just a phenomenal looking machine. The black and the gold, and the exhaust pipe, the way the engine sticks out. It just looks amazing. Now I haven't done anything to this bike, it's bone stock. The only thing I got my mind set on right now is maybe that tail tidy look wise. But you know, honestly, it doesn't bother me and it keeps the roost off my back. Anyway, let's jump on the bike and talk more about this motorcycle and what it's like to live with for 1 year. While we're at it, let's go ahead and take a photo. This is my absolute favorite angle of this bike. Let's do this thing. Woo! Yeah, baby. I absolutely love the way this motorcycle sounds on startup. Just sounds like it's a beast coming to life. While we're here, let's do a couple of slow speed stuff in this parking lot. There we go, 2 parking spots. Awesome. That's one thing I love about this bike, is it is just super easy to control. All right, let's get on with it. All right, so let's talk about the Z900RS Cafe. Now, I've owned this bike about a year now, and if you go back to my old videos, you could see exactly when I uploaded that first ride from the dealer, but I think it's either right at a year or coming up on a year. But I have put, let's see how many miles I have on this thing. 1,790 miles. Now, you could say that's not a lot of miles, but I have 2 other motorcycles that I ride, and that is my BMW R18 and also my Triumph T100 that I have modified heavily, and stay tuned for a video on that. So I sold my Indian Chief, got this motorcycle, and I couldn't have been happier. All the issues I had with the Indian Chief was just really stifling the ownership experience, and that's the great thing about this particular motorcycle, or just Japanese motorcycles in general, is I'm not saying there's no bad Japanese motorcycles out there. In fact, I've owned a couple of them. But for me, I've owned 2 Kawasaki's now, and they have both been rock solid motorcycles. Now, I tend to stay in sort of the modern retro type bike. So that last motorcycle that I owned from Kawasaki was my W800 Cafe. And that is one of my regrets, my big regrets in selling. I should not have sold that bike. I should have kept that for longer and maybe just added this one. But because of just being fond of motorcycles in general, and also having a motorcycle channel that does reviews, you know, you're naturally looking at other bikes all the time. So you make sacrifices a little bit here and there so that you can try different motorcycles out and do some reviews on things. So with all that said, I'm happy to report that this motorcycle has just been a joy to own, and it has been amazing. Let me go over some top reasons why I think that you, as an owner or potential owner, could give this particular motorcycle a shot. And I'm talking specifically about the Cafe version, but I happen to like the regular RS version a lot as well. In fact, I think this bike is one of those rare bikes that looks just as good without the Cafe styling and the fairing than with it. So whatever configuration you choose, they both look awesome. So let's talk about why this could possibly be an amazing bike for somebody who wants to keep a bike long term. Well, it's a full bike, and what I mean by that is a lot of times you buy a motorcycle off the showroom floor and you have a laundry list of things that you want to do to it to even get it rideable for you. And that really sucks. I've owned a couple bikes like that, where you buy it and you kind of deal with it. It's not really that comfortable until you spend, you know, a couple $1,000s on getting a new seat, maybe some suspension, all that kind of stuff. This is a complete motorcycle. It comes with good suspension from the factory, adjustable suspension front and rear, and you can really dial this in for you as a rider. And honestly, I haven't even touched it yet. Now, from doing the suspension on my Bonneville, I know that I could probably firm up this rear a little bit more and maybe dial in some of this preload on the front forks. But I haven't really felt the need to do so, because a lot of the riding that I like doing is a little bit more chilled out, but also I like taking this bike on some long rides, and sometimes I prefer a little bit more of the squishy suspension on a long ride versus you know, kind of getting after corners and everything. So, and that's the other thing I love about it. From the showroom floor, I have not even adjusted anything on this bike. I just get on the bike, turn it on, and ride the thing. If you are going to own one bike, you don't really want something you're going to have to be working on all the time, because you're not going to want to ride that motorcycle if you have to be tweaking on it or fixing it all the time. Whoa, this road. Yes, so this is the perfect bike for somebody who wants a reliable machine. Check. Number 2, it gets pretty good gas mileage for what it is. Now, I consider amazing gas mileage to be in like the 60s and 70s for a motorcycle, and also running on the cheapest gas. So this bike actually requires premium fuel. And again, that's not a bad thing. The kind of engine it is, it's a high compression engine, and I guess it just requires premium fuel. Will it blow up if you put 87 in it? Probably not. But the manual does state to require that higher grade fuel. Another thing that I love is this hinged gas cap that a lot of bike manufacturers seem to leave out these days on other bikes, and it just makes filling up the bike super easy. Like 92 here, okay. Alright, so that's 3.22 gallons, 145.1 divided by 3.22, getting about 45 miles to the gallon. And the bike says it is getting 49.6, so it's a little bit optimistic, plus or minus 3 to 5, either way. Alright. Good on gas, reliable. The third thing is, there aren't many retro styled machines out there that are actually performance motorcycles. Most retro motorcycles are not only retro in style, but the way the engine performance is and the way the bike is outfitted is also retro, which means that the bike may look amazing, but everything else that comes with it is just kind of middle of the road. And ooh, that road was really weird. All right, let's actually get moving here. So when you get a retro motorcycle, typically you are sacrificing a lot of things for the aesthetic, because a lot of the money, I guess, when they design a motorcycle goes into the aesthetic of the motorcycle versus the performance of it. And you know, using my W800 as a guide for that, the bike looked incredible, but the engine performance was in line with a retro motorcycle. It wasn't weak, but it wasn't powerful, just middle of the road. The suspension was also just middle of the road, and if I'm being honest, probably a little less than that. It looks like somebody spilled some oil all over the place. What is going on here? So with this motorcycle, you are getting a bike that can really perform stock. Now, what is this guy doing here? All right, let's get back on the road here. Yes, so another reason why this could be a great bike for you is you have retro styling with modern performance. And my friends, a lot of people really want that modern performance. So Kawasaki really only has two retro bikes, in my opinion, that they offer currently, which is the W800 and the Z900RS. And the thing about it is, there's only really one other company, in my opinion, that is offering, I guess, multiple retro styled machines that actually can perform, and that is namely Triumph Motorcycles. And they have just been killing it, and their entire Bonneville range is so diverse. You can get something that is very, very retro like the T100, or you can get something that is just amazing like the Scrambler XE, or even the Speed Twin. Those are all like kind of incredible motorcycles. But what I really love about Kawasaki and this particular motorcycle, it really draws from their own heritage and is not trying to be, you know, a Triumph Bonneville. A lot of times you get a lot of retro bikes or cafe bikes that are really just trying to mimic what Triumph has been doing for years. And you know, those three things are exactly what makes it a great motorcycle. And after this 1 year mark, it really does live up to my expectations of it. In fact, it's exceeded my expectations. It is definitely a handsome motorcycle, super good looking retro looks with modern performance and that Japanese reliability. Another thing that makes this bike awesome is that slow speed maneuverability, and it just is so easy to flick around. I think you would find it hard to walk away without a smile on your face after you ride one of these bikes. All right, so let's get that out of the way. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some things that maybe could deter you from owning this bike. And I guess the top things on the list would be the snatchy throttle. Now, I have gotten used to this throttle, but it is a lot more snappy than other motorcycles, especially when I switch from my BMW R18 to this. The BMW R18 has a really, really soft roll-on, and you almost have to give it more gas than you think it would be, and this is quite the opposite. You have to give it less gas than you think you're going to need. And the solution to that is actually to ride it more in the rev range than sort of lugging the bike. And that's what I normally do. So it's not really that big of an issue for me, except for maybe some slow speed maneuvers when you really need to have some finesse with it. And the kind of workaround for me on that is I ride that at super slow speeds. A lot of times if I'm going to take, you know, a really sharp turn or a U-turn at slow speeds, I will ride it at probably second gear instead of first, you know, when doing like U-turns in a parking lot or something like that. I think that kind of really mitigates that snatchy throttle. Now, if you do some research, there is a flash that does fix this issue, and the most popular one, I think, in my opinion, at least on the forum that I'm on, the Ivan Z900 mod. And not only does he flash it, but if you do, you know, an exhaust and everything like that, you could really get some serious power out of this motorcycle. I mean, is it going to compete with a, you know, a true track bike? Probably not, but it's going to be way more than you're ever going to really need for the street. People, blow the grass off the road. So the next thing that a lot of people don't like on this bike, and doesn't really bother me anymore, is, you know, the clunkiness in shifting gears. And I'm not talking about when you're at a dead stop and you click from, you know, neutral to first. I'm talking about the first to second shift is definitely that longer throw and is kind of clunky. But, you know, it really doesn't bother me anymore. I've just gotten used to the way that the bike shifts. But really, it shifts great. And I guess if you're comparing this to something like, you know, like a Harley Davidson or Indian or whatever, the gearbox is just gonna be like butter comparatively. The other thing I love about this too is just the power. There's so much of it, and you can get going fast even when you're in 6th gear. There's a whole lot on tap on this motorcycle. And then the last thing that could possibly deter you from getting this bike is it is not a small bike. It doesn't feel small when you're sitting on it, but there aren't any luggage options that come standard with this bike except for a couple of luggage spools on the back. And I found that to be plenty, but if you're really planning on packing down this motorcycle, you probably should look into some kind of luggage system or some kind of throwover bags or something to where you can really expand its capabilities. But the good news is the aftermarket support for this bike is actually really good. There's a whole lot of mods and different aesthetic things you can do this bike, and different luggage mods all over the place, from tank bags to luggage racks and, you know, panniers and the whole 9 yards. So if you're willing to put a little bit of money into it, you know, it could be quite the tourer. Changing the oil on this and the filter is probably the easiest that I have ever had the pleasure of doing. It's done right on the side stand, and the filter, the drain plug, and everything is so accessible. I wish more manufacturers would take that into account. It really makes maintenance on the fly a breeze on this motorcycle. The other thing to talk about now are the brakes. So I've ridden this bike around a lot, so the brakes have had plenty of time to bed in, and the brakes, the front brake is really good. I get a lot of feel and stopping power on that front brake, and I really can, you know, feel exactly what's going on with that front brake. Now the back brake works really well too, but what I found that the back brake ABS kicks on a little too early. You know, the way the ABS works, at least on this bike, it gives you that judder sensation. So if you push that back brake, you know, kind of where it would be on most other bikes, and you're squeezing the front and the back, you can feel that back brake ABS kick on, and you get a little bit of judder from the back. Man, it is a beautiful day. An amazing day for a ride. Look at this. Uphill, slow speed, carving through. Yeah, those slow speed turns are a piece of cake with this motorcycle. So guys, if you couldn't tell already, I love the Kawasaki Z900RS Cafe. And it is an incredible motorcycle, and you really owe it to yourself to check one out. Alright guys, that's about it for my 1-year review on the Z900RS Cafe. I'm loving the bike, and I think you will love it too. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment below. It's Bert's Bike, and I will catch you on the next one. One more thing that makes this bike so easy to live with is the positive neutral finder. If you are in gear and are at a dead stop, if you pull up on the shift lever as hard as you want to, it will go to neutral every single time. And that is awesome because you're not sitting around trying to fumble around and trying to find neutral. Awesome feature of this bike. The other thing that I love about this bike too is the way it sounds. The exhaust just sounds amazing. Let's take a listen to that. Yeah, another thing that makes this bike super easy to live with is it does not take up a whole lot of room in your garage.